The ACC, the tank conference of college football. Dead in the water if Dabo didn't use the transfer portal. The Big 12, the conference of chaos, where first place and last place share the same living room under a first round playoff exit, but still refuse to add Memphis. The Big 10, where 2 kings, 1 jack, and all of their peasants reside. And Oregon. By now, you've met these 3 conferences and all of their tirades to the college football world over the course of history. Many losses, many wins, an abundance of Outback and Holiday Bowls, and whatever you pretend Iowa has. These conferences are the skeleton that makes up the rotting flesh of the college football ecosystem. Well, except we forgot one. A league that's far separated from the others, both in the way they conduct themselves online and the rabid strokes they have in person for their team. There's only one left to discuss, and there's only one conference that can fit this narrative. The Pac-12. That's right. The Pac-12 Conference is a conference full of Pacific juggernauts that build the college football landscape into what we know now. USC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado. These teams were never always good, but they marked history with their name and represented their conference well. Furthermore, they're the kings of midnight football, where you can always count on them to provide the bedtime entertainment for the East. While these leagues provide their own set of football values, they're
Stop! Huh? Whatever you do, do not say the next words you're thinking of. Otherwise, you'll summon them.
What? About this? I mean, it's true. That is a different league. What the hell's going on here?
What have you done? I gotta get out of here!
Oh no! I should have listened to him! What's happening? What the hell is happening?
It's different. It's just totally different. And these comparisons of other conferences in the ACC and Big 12, I mean, it's just like, it's, you might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues.
Down the sideline, caught, touch, and the Razorbacks, they are just running wild. Nix is back, throws it downfield, caught, touchdown! What a play by Richardson, a ball fake to Kiffin. Hands in, gets it off, London Humphreys, here goes Ray, say goodbye to here goes the freshman sensation. Throwing this ball towards the end zone, right on target, pulled in by a bounce outside for Kiffin to the end zone, and a pass, caught, touches the pressure, there he goes, Lenora Sellers. Yeah, but what he's going to do is get Tennessee home by giving it weapon. That ball's intercepted. It is intercepted. Is there for Schlee. He'll buy some time. Even to the end zone at the back, and it's incomplete.
Welcome to hell, everyone. It's finally time to lay into the Southeastern Conference, or what has been laid into your subconscious due to commercial burn-in, SEC! 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 After the South Division took their first of many ass beatings from the North, the North's culture, including the idea of American football, was interwoven into their own. They were far more welcoming of this idea than the concept of education. So thus began the birth of Southeastern football. Following many years of trial and error, the conglomerate of teams from the South became known as the SEC. From that day forward, the SEC's administration and fans worked hard on a daily basis to live up to all the bad things about a sports team. Overhyped traditions, arrogant and loud fan bases that only shut up when asleep, and governing bodies with corporate reputation as good as Fee Shoujo, a company currently going under for stealing $500,000 in charity money. Last I checked, Greg Sankey has yet to do such a thing, but his continuous promotion of the conference has everyone else acting like he's responsible for every world disaster. His empire has expanded to such a point that even the NCAA cowers in fear of the power of the conference. They dominate in draft picks, overall championships, and rule by a significant margin in terms of fan toxicity. Ironically, these same fans will come after you for your own toxicity, which is like SA Awareness Month taking in Diddy as a guest speaker. They pretend to be far different from all the other conferences, but the truth is actually that they represent all three at once. Many of their teams produce football aids and nothing more. The conference is chaotic in nature at some point in time. And of course, it's represented by the elites, which the media circle jerks in an attempt to prop up the entire conference. How else would you be able to explain Missouri constantly being ranked? It's like a fly that got in the house and you can't get out. The only teams that escaped containment from this conference's grasp were Georgia Tech, Tulane, and Sewanee. We all remember and love you, Sewanee. We all love you. Despite these facts, the media, especially SEC outlets, push the conference as a league far above the others. Even the coaches, such as everyone's favorite Twitter clown Lane Kiffin, did his best to push the narrative through his different leagues comment. It's a meme we'll never forget. And it's funny he says this when even he knows Auburn exists. Most of these teams ride the coattails of the elites when they themselves had struggled to fill their own stadium in an attempt to win the Sun Belt. But the SEC is a conference that hypes themselves off of their own national success, just as long as you pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. Auburn's worth more than the Big Ten! Meanwhile, in order to really grasp the reality of the SEC, you have to do what I've done to all other power teams and lie down the facts, just so you understand that the SEC really isn't just as big and bad as they make themselves out to be. It's like putting a chimpanzee in a business meeting. Just because they speak the most and yell doesn't make them smarter than you or right about anything they say. All it does is it just means more. It would be a crime to start this expenditure out anywhere else other than the incestual cesspool of Tuscaloosa/Birmingham, Alabama. There's no Alabama fans now that remember they used to play there because they only dare remember the name of 2 head coaches in their lifetime, one of which is an icon of the sport, Paul Bear Bryant. Taking over Alabama for several decades, he won them 6 national titles, along with many conference titles, and secured Alabama as a national powerhouse in the college football landscape. I mean, the man was so good at coaching, he made Kentucky a football powerhouse. Let that one sink in for a minute. Oh shit, my bad, I forgot Alabama fans can't think about anything else other than this man here. Nick Saban. He arguably surpassed the legacy of Bear and cemented himself as the best coach of all time. 6 national titles, 4 Heisman winners, a record-breaking number of draft picks, many of which got sacrificed to New Orleans or Cleveland. He left such a footprint on the sport that he got the field he coached in named after him. Once he hit his retirement at the end of the 2023 season, his name among the program itself became cemented as beyond any other. Because of this status, this program has a squeaky clean reputation among college football with no controversy or football aids to ever cover. Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? In between the period of Bear's retirement and Saban's dominion, Alabama was degraded to becoming a circus only entertaining to Auburn fans. While Gene Stallings won them the title in '92, he quickly bailed due to mismanagement from the administration stuck on Bear. Once Mike DeBose came in, his management was like Mario Cristobal when it comes to the clock. Gone. While most Alabama fans only remember Bear and Saban, there are some degenerates who are forced to relive the year 2000 in their nightmares. 3-8 with losses to UCF and Southern Miss, which in turn spiked the sales of Bud Light. Keep the G5 teams in mind, they'll be relevant throughout this experience. The ones that didn't hit alcohol poisoning were forced to live through the era of Mike Shula. I would say Franchione or Mike Price, but one immediately bailed due to past allegations coming to life, and one got banned due to present allegations coming to life. In all due respect, Pensacola is a better place to be than bumshit Alabama. With the privilege of losing a shit ton of games also comes the sanctions that came with it, including a 2002 use of NIL before it was cool, and a 2007 scandal involving textbooks. Imagine getting sanctions for books in Alabama when nobody can read them. Intellect. Somehow, despite this, it was far from the worst thing that happened to Bama in 2007.
Keep the hope alive. Wilson's pass deflected, incomplete. And Louisiana Monroe will take over.
Year 1 under Saban is going so strong that the fans are already screaming, "Farmer Mass!" As Bama fans do with every loss, they immediately pivot to NASCAR as watching a bunch of cars drive circles on a racetrack is the closest thing to educational television they'll get. The Bama team you know today is one that is still grasping onto their claimed titles, many of which are likely fake, and through the media sucking off Saban's past regimes through College Game Day and AP polls. Too bad the playoff committee doesn't follow the same mindset. While they were still short of making the playoffs, they are a squad still capable of national competition and never losing to a shitty SEC team like Vanderbilt.
Pavia keeps it. Pavia picks up the first down, and the unlikeliest of heroes has guided Vanderbilt to what will be its first ever win against number 1.
Well, all that matters is our strength of schedule was hard, and hypothetically, they won this game. Hell yeah! Down here one time. That's probably not true now that I think about it. There's no Alabama fan that knows a word such as hypothetical. By the way, Mike Shula's in Columbia now, so good luck with that. High time! For every Goliath in the college football landscape, there must be a rival program next to them that holds onto their coattails, constantly rides off of their success because they have none themselves, and for every decade they get one win against them, it's like Christmas, 4th of July, and St. Patrick's Day all happen at the same time. To get this experience, just go to the plains of the Auburn Tigers. Over 100 years of this program and they still can't decide whether they're represented by an eagle or a tiger. They claim the eagle came from their first game in which an eagle flew over their field, but this was likely due to the eagle finding the right place to take a fat dump. I believe they're represented by a barn though, because watching them play football is as close to a barn fire as you can get. Through your history, Pat Sullivan, Bojangle Jackson, and Cam Newton are the only pieces of offense you produced. You didn't see consistent success until the 2000s, of which you kept shaking yourself as you do. You had a chance in 1993 under Terry Bowden, but nobody was even aware of that season as they kicked you off the air. In 2003, you tried to secretly throw Tommy Tuberville to the wayside for Bobby P. Karma of which got your ass shortly afterwards because A, you were undefeated but were still cut from a natty, and B, just like your brother, you were too stupid to pass exams without cheating! Only 1 year in the 50s and 2010 were the years you were able to bring it together and win it all, both of which were tainted with payments and scams. In today's world, you could harvest organs for NIL donations and the NCAA won't do shit to stop you. Times have certainly changed. For example, Cam Newton's 2010 title was tainted due to his father soliciting $180,000 by cucking Mississippi State, karma of which resulted in Auburn never being able to fully recover from. The following seasons can attest to such a fate. You had lightning strike like 3 times in 2013, all to lose on the biggest stage to the snatcher of crab legs himself. Many Auburn fans today are who they are because of their experiences they suffered under the tenure of the Gus Bus. Once it started its engine in Auburn, it always ended at the same destination, off a cliff, landing with the largest buyout in college football history. The alternative was even worse, as you hired a man who was such an ass clown that he made everyone around him hate him, including the opposing teams. You learn from those mistakes by, who am I kidding, Auburn doesn't learn shit. Hugh Freeze is both unlikable and incapable of winning games. You gotta have at least one of those to have the SEC's good graces. The Auburn squad you know today is one living off of being unpredictable in nature. The few times they get a home game against big teams are their earnings of about 15 minutes of fame because every quarterback they trot out there makes the last look better in comparison because none of them would wound up living to half of their stars. At least Bojangle Nix did, but he didn't do it with you. So now with the coach on the hot seat for an abundance of reasons plus living with the realization of a tied series with Vanderbilt, it might be smart to invest in the Birmingham Stallions. Your money is probably going to a better place.
Auburn's gonna win the football game!
Down in the pits of Gainesville, Florida is another program stuck thinking about what they used to be rather than what they are now. A very similar pattern to all of their friends in the same state. I'm talking about the jort-wearing swamp-ass Florida Gators. While they've been a part of the SEC since its creation, the different leagues principle didn't kick in for them until the 80s. Florida was probably the latest bloomer of them all, as they didn't exist in football until 1991 when they finally won the SEC. They did win the SEC in 1984, but the entire Charlie Pell era was null because they committed more NCAA violations than the minutes Tim Tebow spent at church today. Through their probation, they eventually convinced future legend Steve Spurrier to coach for them. You could highlight a few reasons as to how Florida finally made it to the top, but a lot of that was certainly due to Spurrier's reign. He may look constipated 24/7, but you can't deny his fun gun power in the 90s with Danny Warfel. Years later, Urban Meyer was the man who led Florida to 2 or more titles under 2-time Heisman winner Tebow and many, many future inmates. Turns out Florida takes more after FSU and Miami than we thought. More than 30 players are thrown in jail at some point from these teams. And eventually, Urban himself led to Ohio State citing a magical heart attack that took him out of coaching for a second or two. Following that though, everything immediately went straight to hell. They hired instant regret afterwards. Will Muschamp's offense was as reliable as Rotten Tomatoes. I lost my faith in everything they do because they gave cuties a 98%. A sin that equates to losing to Georgia Southern at home. A game of which they literally didn't complete a pass. While it's hard to outdo that, some of the other upcoming coaches definitely tried. Like everyone's favorite shark lover, Jim McElwain. Because the entire SEC East was equal to the Big Ten West, he somehow managed to win it twice in a row as a sacrificial lamb to Alabama. Florida has a tendency of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to coaching hires, like when they hired Dan Development Mullen, who was thought to take them places very high up. But because his recruitment went a little like this,
Can Cole Taylor get there? No, nowhere near the line to make.
it ended as you would expect. Unfulfilled expectations with a side of depression. Nowadays, Florida's hopes and dreams line up in a man we all know as Billy Napier. However, their expectations for football have driven them mad, to the point that they are celebrating and bragging about an 8-win season. They've become more synonymous to Fat Albert than Albert the Gator. At this point, the only thing that could save them is another Tim Tebow speech.
A lot of good will come out of this. You have never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season, and you never see someone push the rest of the team as hard as I will push everybody the rest of the season, and you never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season.
Mishka, Muska, Mickey Mouse.
Between the hedges of the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is none other than the Athens-Clarke County Police Department's leading revenue generator, the Georgia Bulldogs. Their mascot on the doghouse looks as the football team plays. Depressing, sad, and only aggressive in playing Auburn. Until very recently, their entire history revolved around 1980 and the legend Herschel Walker. He was the only time Georgia fans felt any sort of catharsis through that era. Once Vince Dooley retired, they garnered a reputation that'll take them another 40 years to undo.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
Georgia became known as the almost team of college football. Georgia being the best program in the Metro Atlanta pipeline set them up as a talent melting pot for both themselves and the pro leagues. However, due to coaching malpractice, they continued to receive belt to cheeks from the big boys, preventing any big wins, of course. Ray Goff put the program into mediocrity, which set them up for Jim Donnan to fulfill this precedent. There isn't a more fitting fate for the Georgia fans, as their influence in the college football landscape is like locusts flying to a village. Carnage. These fans are so rabidly insane that they've gaslit themselves to the idea that Georgia is a blue blood. No team with 2 national titles is a blue blood. Check the foam in your brain. You've had the talent fee on your side forever, but you continuously shit on your own foot. A lot of these narratives formed around what is likely a youth pastor in the neighboring area, Mark Richt. Due to his unbreakable image, Georgia fans were stuck to deal with his continuous collapses in the big games. Richt became a victim of his own success because he was good enough to keep them good, but always fell short of great. He had all the resources in the country, along with guys like Aaron Murray, Matthew Stafford, and Tom Gurley, and never went beyond SEC East champion, which in the 2010s was as valuable as a blue ribbon for finishing top 14 in the conference. It wasn't until a few years into the era of Kirby Smart that everything finally changed. Trial and error was still necessary at this point, as Kirby is as good with managing quarterbacks as Deshaun Watson is as staying away from massage parlors. We are talking about the same guy who traded a first-round future franchise quarterback for a walk-on who could only complete a pass if Brock Bowers was around. Though he had his fair share of Rick-like losses, in part to Alabama losing their best receiver, the Dogs finally broke through and got their first national title since 1980. They did it again in 2022 for a similar reason, as Marvin Harrison was put to sleep in the Peach Bowl. With these titles, 4 playoff appearances, and a few SEC titles as well, Kirby Smart has turned the program into a program on the elite level. This reputation fits right next to their reputation for being a continuous ad for driver's ed. Spurrier put it best: Georgia has garnered the award for most players arrested every season. Georgia fans continuously do what they do best and pivot to other teams instead of daring to criticize their new gods. Georgia fans are a parasite to the game. They have to be the central focus of every conversation, or they'll scream, wail, and reminder that they've beaten overrated TCU in the title game, so they're better than you now. 2022 is moving further and further away before their eyes, and the talent gap they have over everyone else is thinning quicker and quicker by the year. But the fans won't ever recognize that. Dog Nation never sleeps. Unless they play Alabama. Kentucky, a prominent program in the SEC. In fact, it's argued that they are the most dominant program in the SEC. 8 NCAA championships, the best all-time winning percentage, and the most all-time victories. To deny their status would be blasphemy at best, mentally deficient at worst.
Hey, I think you're reading off the wrong script.
Oh, my bad. Hold on. Okay, here it is. Kentucky, a shit-stained program in the SEC. Among the sea of blue balls is a history of football terminal diarrhea and a monument of shit that everyone knows how terrible it is. Even their own insiders know this to be true, as former basketball coach John Calipari outright called it that way. Just like him, once an opening in Fayetteville popped up, any success the program has immediately bails in time. Their most successful moment was Bear Bryant getting his feet in the coaching water. The minimal success 1950 brought is only recognized by the fans. The program itself doesn't even bother to remember it. Many of the other highlight moments through history are also forgotten because they tried to talent feed their way to the top, only to realize it was illegal. 1977 being one of their main chances for glory saw this exact outcome arrive. You did have Hal Mumm. His offense from the late 90s was fun, eccentric, and also illegal because he too bought players. Post this era, Kentucky became what you know them as today, a joke of a program where every conversation about trophies pivots to basketball. They've had generational losing streaks against conference opponents that'll take the football team's grandkids to undo at best. They put all their marbles into Mr. Motivation himself, Mark Stoops, the winningest coach at Kentucky, and that really tells you a lot. It's like saying you're the champion of wrestling when all of your matches were against babies with leukemia. To undo the narrative of your program will take a culture change and a half, plus an abundance of winning. Two things I don't think Stoops is capable of. Your last SEC title was the glorious 1950 season, and it's more likely you rehired Joker Phillips than you even sniffed the SEC championship. You can't even recruit anymore as all of your quarterbacks are Power 5 rejects stuck as the second string at more successful programs, and they're never motivated enough to win anything meaningful. Will Levis was your best asset you had, and other than being degenerate enough to put mayonnaise in coffee, there's nothing special that separated his history from anyone else's at Kentucky. Your program is stuck in limbo, sitting at the bottom of the conference until someone comes in and changes that. But Mark Stoops has got lifetime eligibility until he says something about the basketball program being bad. And to think even that's falling apart. Calling in Baton Rouge is a program with fans that have convinced themselves that they are in blue blood status, only to realize they barely even occupied new blood status. Welcome to Tigerland, where you go to get hovering around mid and midder through most of their time. It takes a long-time veteran fan to make the young ones understand that they are living in between good times and weak men right now. Before Saban did what he did with Bama, he did the exact same thing to LSU, a program that was coming off more losing seasons in the last 10 years than Nebraska. As history foretold, his first year there also came with an added G5 loss as a bonus. But through him and later on the losing of timeout management Les Miles, the program has turned into a powerhouse of the sport. The Tigers are a team that feeds off the talent fee better than most, and despite this, their problem lies in the coaches behind their team. Lord of losing games because of clock management, Les Miles had several chances to win multiple big games, which ended with clock management akin to spiking the ball in fourth down. How bad was it, you may ask? It eventually led to his firing. Despite consistent top 5 recruiting classes, the talent is never enough to overcome this, on top of whatever controversies are uncovered years later. Apparently, Les Miles had such a level of misconduct on the field that he had a restraining order from the entire female student body. Damn, Mel Tucker, you've got competition! As with every coach under LSU, there's good to take with the bad. Like with Ed Orgeron, who served as a motivational speaker whilst Joe Brady, Dave Aranda, and the 2019 team went on to win the national title.
Roll that one, fuck you!
A saying you found a way to regret since. At least he isn't doing anything on the level of Miles in terms of creepy. Oh, come on! Well, after 2 hires like the one you've had, there's no way you'll screw it up and hire another incompetent.
I'm here with my family!
Of course you do. Don't try to rationalize this. Any person who has to make TikTok dances with recruits and fake a southern accent just to fit in is automatically setting themselves up to be hated by the majority. They would likely look past it if Burger King brought with him the success as promised. It's proof that winning a lot of games doesn't equal winning big games. Even with guys like Jaden Daniels and Harold Perkins on the roster, the best you could do with them is an SEC championship appearance and a Texas Bowl. With BK's ethical record, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before there's an allegation as a scapegoat to make him get out. Makes Will Wade look like a product of the system. The LSU fanbase is like Omar the Tiger, an exhibit to look at from a distance. Hell, the mascot has more strength and conditioning than the team. One thing true with the Tigers is that they always find a way to get ranked in the top 5 due to talent, while bringing in 3-star results. I'm as sure of that as I am Coach O is in bed with another girl half his age. You ever think about Johnny Vaught's reaction to the program he nurtured for generations and how it's holding up today? Of course you don't. 99% of you think I just named a booster that just got you into another year of probation. Vaught was basically the man responsible for preventing you from becoming another Auburn. He turned the Rebels into a national force, of which kept the program as a resident of the top 10. However, once their Bill Snyder hit the old person comparison to the transfer portal, Ole Miss's administration found out they were years behind rent and were swiftly kicked out of the top 10, only to return when they had a roster worthy of coming back. The catch? They never did. The Manning brothers were about the only material collectible for them, and as you'd expect, they never gave them any sort of hardware. To this day, the Land Sharks never touched an SEC championship or even made it for the chance to get one. Their one title is one the fanbase doesn't even recognize because it's shared with Minnesota. Coaches like Tommy Tuberville, David Cutcliffe, and tried their hand but came up on the shore with nothing but excrement and Independence Bowl bags. Houston Finnenutt looked promising until the career went like a Note 7 and blew up in his face. So, in typical SEC fashion, they had to win the ball games the right way. Cheating. Would it be surprising if I told you this was the man behind the program slaughter? Nope. Beating Alabama in back-to-back seasons does you no good when you gotta buy said wins. Probably would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for Laramie Tunsil actively giving you the middle finger on the way out. Thus, Ole Miss as you know it falls completely on the Twitter account of Lane Kiffin, which through his trolling and constant begging from Auburn and Florida administrations to give him the job, has at the bare minimum returned Ole Miss to life. Try as you may, but Lane Kiffin isn't leaving there. A giant mouth with results akin to instant karma is exactly the program Ole Miss has been known to be.
Here comes the pressure. Corral towards the goal line. It is caught. It is a touchdown. Elijah Moore. And they're an extra point away from tying the game. The kick is up.
Case in point. That so-called Walk of Champions makes you gain weight instead of losing. This is a very legitimate question. What do you do? Everyone else in this forsaken conference has a ground-level accomplishment that makes them special. What exactly did you bring to the table? You were number one in the playoffs for a couple of weeks? Cool, let's see how that ended.
Prescott. What the hell is even that? Ball goes over on downs.
How overly predictable. They're the underdogs of the SEC if you took all the dog out of them. Bully, their mascot, being a reference for what happens to them anytime they try and play above their pay grade. There has to be a doormat of the conference that the others in the conference can use to prop up their record, and you fill that void perfectly since 3 FCS teams aren't enough. The Cowbell College's only piece of hardware in the football world comes from World War II, which in today's standards would be like winning something during COVID where everyone's starters are likely out for sickness or serving the country. Since this SEC title, Mississippi State has won a grand total of nothing. They've devolved into a game of leapfrog for up-and-coming coaches to pad their resume. More accurately, they're a place for coaches to bury said resume in Davis-Wade Stadium and disconnect from the server. They've got more winless seasons and cheating scandals than great SEC seasons. 10-win seasons or anything close to them are about as rare as non-degenerate Genshin Impact players, and of the time they do, they immediately vanish back into the depths of football hell. The only thing that separates them from Purdue is one of the most annoying sounds in the world: the cowbell. They need these artificial noisemakers as it's the only way to deviate from UCLA's crowd, both being Scooby-Doo ghost towns. Probably the biggest accomplishment this program had to offer was Dak Prescott's 2014 season and the peak of development himself, Dan Mullen, who then went on to tear 2 programs apart at once. Dak himself went on to have a legacy of carrying an already broken program, of which has a lot of similarities with the SEC. The program you know them as today is one that has returned to its roots. The stain in the toilet that no matter how hard you scrub, that shit ain't ever coming off. Constant coaching turnovers, of which we could be seeing another one soon if Jeff Lebby's job isn't saved by another SEC team. Granted, part of their struggles today is due to circumstances outside of their control. More specifically, an unforeseen tragedy in the form of the Pirates passing. Long live Mike Leach. I feel it's no better off ending this segment than to illustrate the common Mississippi State fan.
I just have one statement to make to all people involved with LSU. We are Mississippi State! Fear the Bills!
And I went kind on you here because I could have mentioned the Egg Bowl. Long ago, back in the old faithful 1998, the Tennessee Volunteers were down against the Arkansas Razorbacks, who had the ball in what very well could have been victory formation. It was on this day that the Volunteers made a deal with the devil himself.
Sterner lost the football! Oh my goodness! He stumbled and fumbled, and Billy Ratliff recovered!
While this inevitably handed Tennessee a national title for the first time in half a century, the price to be paid was uncertain at the time. But over the years, Tennessee fans have come to understand the consequences of this deal. Every single year, the football generation that comes after '98 are forced to pay their dues. While it's common for Tennessee to lose, that's not exactly their style anymore. Rather than lose, Tennessee completely humiliates themselves on such a national scale that it's a global discussion when they do it. I'm sure many fans wish to go back to the days of General Neyland, Johnny Majors, or even Prime Philip Fulmer. But the moment they unceremoniously fired Fulmer the Monday of the Wyoming game in '08, Rocky Top has devolved into Rocky Flop. Every single thing that they did post his firing has turned them from what was thought to be a football powerhouse into what we know them as today. A constant circus that doesn't even end during the off-season. It all started with the Lane Kiffin fiasco, where he was thought to be an up-and-coming legend. He turned heel in the middle of the night the moment Southern Cal offered the job. Ironically, his tale there was as successful as the guys Tennessee had to suffer through. Derek Dooley's tenure had some of the best offensive talents Tennessee had up to date, which would be instantly wasted because the defense couldn't cover my dick if they were an XSL condom. Then came Butch Jones, who had some of the greatest talents Tennessee had ever seen, so much so that they, to this day, are successful in the NFL. Of course, the best accomplishment he could muster was a Music City Bowl. All that doesn't matter because he won the greatest gift of all, though, a life championship. After he inevitably got canned for that, Tennessee brought in Jeremy Pruitt from Alabama. He left all the success behind, though, resulting in some of the most humiliating, back-breaking moments for a fan of the Vols to endure. On top of that...
Oh, hold on a second. My lunch is here. Oh, boy. I wonder what I have today. What? Oh, come on! Again?
He did it all by cheating to get said outcome. These are just some of the aneurysms the Vols football program has created because of their deal. One thing all too common with Tennessee is that they are finding all new creative ways to outdo the tomfoolery on a season-by-season basis. Me as a fan of the program as well keeps getting shocked by the same outcome. It's like getting my finger burnt on the stove, and the lesson I learned from it is to throw my entire body into the oven. The constant terrors of this program have turned Tennessee fans into gluttons for punishment. Their lust for humiliation is so much so, they'd graduate from taking the kink test. They'll never understand why they've been chosen to pay to this extent, but until the payment is complete, it's our job to destroy the SEC narrative by embarrassing everyone in it. All hail Columbus South. I now present to you homecoming for the other team. In most cases, that's been the entire point of playing Vandy in football. You wouldn't think it, but they weren't always like this, as back when the Titanic first sank, Vanderbilt was an elite program that ran the state, the South, and most of the country. They dominated the Vols and even the Crimson Tide through most of the years. But once the talent fee came into play and Vandy recognized their position as an academic school, the conference slowly moved past the Nashville nerds. Like tycoon man Cornelius Vanderbilt could tell you, you went like the stocks of Blockbuster and crashed hard. Over time, you've gone from top of the conference to being a stain found at the bottom of the crustiest toilet. The worst winning percentage in the conference and one of the worst in the Power 5. You've had more winless conference records than postseason appearances, and that's shown in the talent you put on disposal. Talent in the modern era for Vandy has only been shown in one individual by the name of Jay Cutler. The program around him was a continuously burning fire, but he still went on to play in the NFL. James Franklin Christ managed to do the unthinkable in the modern era and get Vandy ranked for consecutive seasons, but shortly after one of the most degenerate acts his players took part in, he bailed for Penn State. Ever since, Vandy is what you know them as now, a program under constant disarray and a need to do anything to get them relevance, such as getting a female from the soccer team as a kicker because you know all too well ESPN would eat that shit up. It was the only time they ever even bothered to speak about you in any capacity. 2024 has been a double-edged sword for Vanderbilt fans, as it has given them hope and raised their expectations to such an impossible degree for Vandy, that being consecutive bowl games, of which they've only made 10 in history. For a school where their most sacred tradition is watching other schools' fans take their construction site stadium over, having any view of Vandy outside of being the Ivy League of the South is a mistake. You're designed to be smart, or good at football. You can't do both. If it weren't for your honor students, you would have been sent to the Sun Belt long ago. Diego Pavia putting his mouth up his own ass and yapping from it has already put Vandy in a position where they now have to live up to expectations. Certainly sounds familiar, doesn't it?
When you come to our house, we show you how to play some SEC ball. It don't matter where you're from, you're gonna know what ball we play. Alabama, you're next.
Just go ahead and let me know when to lift the anchor up. Nothing beats an Arkansas holiday. And right now, you could save millions by not showing up for bowl season. You thought dragging these 10 squads around was bad enough, but in 1992, the SEC brought in some more friends, starting with none other than one of the Southwest Conference's strongest soldiers, Pig Time. Of course, the moment they joined the conference, any strength they had transferred to Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, hey, when you're getting the dough, who cares if you're getting cooked on a skillet each week? All too similar to an FCS team when they meet the SEC in combat, Arkansas receives a paycheck from the conference to take their usual ass beatings to most of the teams in the conference. However, Arkansas puts their own unique twist on it. Rather than just flat out being put on the stick, they found creative ways to blow these games themselves to a degree I call the Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Arkansas Razorbacks. This program specifically is one of the experts of collapse. They have the talent fee on their side on most occasions, as they can take a walk-on and turn him into an All-American talent. They can get guys like Darren McFadden on the squad and win somewhere between 8 and 11 games, but every season suffers from a similar fate. A string of losses of which they commit to themselves. Oh boy, Arkansas is raked again. I sure hope they don't piss themselves again.
Here's nuke incoming! Everybody get down! Sir!
Perhaps the biggest piss nuke is the episode where they had to witness Bobby P and the motorcycle, a story I doubt we'll ever see the 100% truth of. Once John L. Smith took over, Arkansas went like the 2006 season's end and fell off the face of the earth. Bert Bielema does better in the North than the South as proven by his seasons there, and the name afterwards is one I don't even think I can say. He's the Voldemort of this program. No SEC program saw more rags on the field when this clown was on there. The program today contains the same story. Strong enough to win against a top 5 team at home, but never able to maintain said success to the point that they also lose to a 3-win Big 12 team for funsies. Sam Pittman is leaning heavily on these big wins because without him, he'd be back at Georgia as an analyst. He has to fight against the constant narrative around his program while ignoring the reputation of the program itself being the ACC, full of lawsuits. But don't worry, you guys, I'm sure that you'll get a national title in the modern era one of these days. I'm as sure of that as I am you'll tackle this punt return.
Spinner on that. That's a smart play to catch that at the 10-yard line there by Keegan Brewer. So North Texas has come into Fayetteville and shown
he's never made a fair catch.
Oh, he did make a fair catch signal. He's gone. Brewer down the sideline.
You want this piece of bacon?
This is going to be a touchdown.
You know, maybe the Big 12 rejected Memphis for an entirely different reason. Unfortunately, Arkansas wasn't the only football syphilis the conference dragged in, as former tank conference/independent South Carolina was also thrown into the conference. Their lone accomplishment to this day is having more ACC titles than Miami. Outside of that, all they ever do is ruin a championship contender's life every year and take a few up the cockaboose. Since their invitation back in '92, they've never won the conference. Even with the chances they've had to change that, it's always ended in them getting destroyed on the big stage. It doesn't matter who their coach is, it always has the same results. Their greatest highlight in their history is getting Florida sloppy seconds and Steve Spurrier's returning to coaching. 11 win seasons 3 years in a row is an accomplishment equating to getting Iowa in the playoffs, but more often than not, it always falls apart somewhere along the way. The rule with the SEC East of the 2000s, everyone must suck, and the Gamecocks had to live with that narrative too. For a program based on chickens, they certainly live up to it. We could talk about your rivalries, but I think it's wise to refrain from that. Must have hit like Jadeveon Clowney when I showed you that record. One thing you'll have to give the Cox credit for is that their fanbase is at least SEC material. Constantly one of the top 15 loudest environments despite producing mid-level football most years. Even amidst the Will Muschamp years, the Gamecock fans showed enthusiasm where there wasn't any. Yeah, USC Jr. really took the whole Florida sloppy seconds thing seriously. You could have asked them what they were thinking when they did this, but that would imply they were even thinking at all. Nowadays, all of their hopes and happiness fall on whatever Deebo Samuel does, since putting any hope on the Panthers is a fate masochistic for even Gamecock fans. In this current stage, head coach Shane Beamer is as unpredictable as it gets. They'll either be a contender for the playoffs again or at the bottom of the conference. That's all dependent on what ref ball thinks you should do. So cue up the sandstorm, wave around those towels, and prepare for another 7-win season. At least you get chicken fingers every Wednesday. Luckiest Cox I've ever known. Now hold on a second. Isn't the SEC supposed to stand for the Southeastern Conference? Missouri is part of the reason they're potentially dubbed as super embarrassing cucks. They're not just an outlier in geography. Joining the conference in 2012, the SEC administration had a clear misunderstanding about the program they let in. Missouri was able to have successful years, but in the times they actually do, it's never sustained. They're a flash-in-the-pan program heavily reliant on that easy scheduling they get from the SEC, and they're the only ones to actually get away with it. Oftentimes, Missouri dodges the toughest competition the conference has to offer, but the times they actually have to battle against it, they need to have a fifth down every drive in order to stand a chance. Either that or the second coming of Chase Daniel, the legend of the Tigers if not for Oklahoma. It's an SEC tradition though to be the #1 team in the nation and blow it at the worst time imaginable. Gary Pinkel's legacy sets as a constant reminder of what they were before they entered the conference. Since their entry, their 2 SEC championship appearances due to the SEC East being dead is all they have to present for their accomplishments. This is all true unless you believe beating a half-dead Ohio State offense in the Cotton Bowl counts. In fairness, they said Mizzou wasn't SEC ready, but in terms of academic stupidity, they actually were. Events like these have turned the zoo into the poo. They've become so degraded through constant years of failure that they've gaslighted themselves into believing the college football version of, hey, you know what kind of train this is the solution to all of their problems. The program as you know it has earned the reputation of being one that equates to Iowa. Poor against all the top teams they play, over-reliant on one specific player per season, and overall as much of a contribution to their conference as Florida State's opinion is to the College Football Playoff Committee. But they'll always find a way to stick around in the top 25 for absolutely no reason other than to prop up Alabama's strength of schedule at any given time. On the bright side, at least they don't have to deal with that pesky Oklahoma anymore.
And now we're gonna move on to the Texas A&M Aggies, one of the strongest programs in the conference, one that has years of success. Gig 'em, Aggies!
Yeah, nobody believing in that shit. A&M's era of winning natties dates all the way back to the days Germany invaded Poland, and their last conference title goes back to the all-too-familiar 1998. Shit. Past this point, the program is built off of failures, constant schedules, and recruiting at a high level all to fall apart when it actually means something. They've initiated Mike Sherman's 5-year plan, but it's an eternal cycle where they get to the 4th year before starting all over again. Pain and agony on repeat. You recruit significant talent like Johnny Manziel, and despite him winning a Heisman Trophy, losing 2 regular season games doesn't get you anywhere farther than a New Year's Six Bowl everyone's going to forget about because Money Manziel's NFL career doesn't exist. The sad thing is, all the fans know this to be true. Battered Aggie syndrome is taking care of that. Their characters' emotions and Inside Out are all nihilism. All 5 emotions, every single one of them. They're completely broken inside because they've seen the same story on repeat for years on end. All of their positive emotions were sapped from the 2018 LSU game. After that, the joy of their world was taken from them despite winning that game. It's all accumulated within the 2022 class. All hype and no results because the entire team did like Florida State after the playoff snub and migrated across the country. Sounds like the $76 million you burned wasn't enough. Only the most talented teams lose to Appalachian State. Sad thing is the money I'm talking about isn't even the cost of the class. I'm talking about Jimbo Fisher's buyout, the largest to be ever seen in college football. I said Malzahn's was the worst, but I flat out lied to y'all. Thus the program, despite the constant support from a fan base already planning their own funeral, Texas A&M is a program that'll probably need 12 men to win the conference. And for the love of God, stop calling yourself a military school. You're a cosplayer. Go spend more money on the team so it can feel like 98 again. Wait, hold on, my bad, wrong team. Feels like 8-4. Yep, we're still not done. We kind of all expected this to happen one day, but the fact it actually happened is a testament to the greed of the SEC. Because now, they get to claim a bunch of national titles from a team that didn't belong to them until last season. That's exactly why Oklahoma exists for them. Because nowadays, they aren't even close to competing for that again. They're more reminiscent of the tipped-over wagon than the program they used to be. They're one of the only blue bloods in the sport, of which they have more natties than everyone else except for Alabama. But if those rings meant anything in the sport of college football, they would have won a playoff game as of now. But of course, as we all know, Oklahoma's time in the spotlight is close to equal to Cincinnati. They've had legends like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts, but as Lincoln Riley can tell you, the free trial to a defense expired the moment it began to exist. Now they take all these things and more to the SEC. just in time for them to find a defense. The only issue, they forgot to bring the offense, as Brent Venables' offense was such a joke under Seth Luttrell that their 5-star quarterback considered Auburn as a better alternative for offensive playability. By that point, everything you've ever done needs to be reconsidered. Until you go without getting beat down by the SEC powerhouses every time you come into contact with them, I don't see how you survive as anything else other than being another Missouri. Hold that title with pride if that's what you're going for. There's only 11 spots for AP Top 25 SEC squads. At long last, we've reached the final squad of the conference. Just like the Sooners, they've initiated themselves into the conference last season. However, unlike their brother who's in the middle of another rebuild cycle, Texas was spotted in the conference off a playoff bid and a coach who actually had some idea of where he is. It's a fresh sense of reliability from the fans' perspective, as they've been waiting since Mac Brown's last tenure for a team they can actually put some hope into. Constant mediocrity made the fans desperate for something, as losing seasons and 4 coaching searches are enough to drive anyone to insanity. They've been constantly spoon-fed by the Longhorn Network a bunch of sparkly unicorn stories of which they've never been able to fulfill. Boosters, donors, and constantly paying kids through Lambos made it all too clear that the Texas administration has no idea what to do with their money. Not that they don't have enough money, but rather too much of it. They're not scared of burning money, but they sure do get scared when you do that spooky hand signal. Better watch out, they might sue you for it. Granted, this was more than enough to push the Longhorns past every competition that presented itself in the conference. Well, except for one. You really came into the conference thinking that you were exempt from the pain it presents. You should know that when you're in the SEC, it always ends the same way. Everyone has to suffer at least once.
They hand it to him. Touchdown! Georgia SEC champions!
Well, at least this time the refs didn't overturn the call because the fans got their feelings hurt. Well, there you have it. You've gotten a taste of every team the SEC has offered, from the opening acts to the ones they just brought in. It's by this point in the season that the SEC fans tell you about how they should have had 4 or 5 or even all the spots in the playoffs. But as the teams they presented showed, they might have been better off adding none from the conference. If you think this is enough to make them shut up until August, I've got some bad news for you. The SEC started investing in basketball and baseball too. So now, you gotta hear the same exact shit every single season, every single month of the year. And God forbid one of them actually wins it all. Expect the rest of the teams to ride the nuts of that winner into the ground. It's this narrative that certainly sets them apart from the other conferences. That of which we all know is that they are a different league. Thank you all for 15,000 subscribers and growing. I'll see you on the next one. Power to Tardaria! Oh, and go check out the Squidtard merch store. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Okay, bye-bye.
Last chance for Brandon Allen and the Razorbacks. 4th and 25. It's complete to Henry. Ole Miss knocks it away. Incomplete. Oh, correction. It's on lateral. Arkansas keeps it going. Collins is going to take it inside the 15, and he has the first down on the lateral.
Well, I sure am glad that's over. At this point, there are no more power teams that I have to cover that embarrass themselves like all these other teams do. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. What is that I'm hearing?
And that's blocked at the line of scrimmage.
Oh!